People get used to doing well, they increasingly bet on the good times continuing and borrow money to do that, which grows into financial bubbles. Naturally, the financial gains come unevenly, so the wealth gap grows. Wealth gaps are self-reinforcing because rich people use their greater resources to reinforce their powers. For example, they give greater privileges to their children, like better education, and they influence the political system to their advantage.
Sheldon Adelson, he is the billionaire behind Las Vegas Sands, which is a casino chain. He has given over $36 million so far. That money has gone mostly to a super PAC. He initially had put millions of dollars behind Newt Gingrich. When he, I guess, saw that the horse he was backing wasn't going to win, he shifted allegiance, and he actually told a colleague of mine, Steve Bertoni, in an excellent cover story for Forbes a few months ago, that he was willing to give as much money as it takes, really, to get Obama out of the White House. The two biggest donors to the Obama-backing super PAC are James Simons, the hedge fund king. He's given $4.1 million so far. The second biggest donor to Obama-backing super PAC, Priorities USA Action, is Irwin Jacobs. He's the founder of Qualcomm. He's given $2.1 million so far. There are also what you call a bundler, who's a super fundraiser. These are people who are very wealthy. Many of them are billionaires on our list. And you have networks of peers and colleagues and friends that are also wealthy and powerful. So some of the best known bundlers aren't actually on the list. There are people like Anna Wintour, the Vogue editor. There's Harvey Weinstein, the media mogul.
This causes the gaps in values, politics, and opportunities to grow between the rich haves and the poor have-nots. Those who are less well off feel the system is unfair, so resentments grow. The U.S. has spent about $8 trillion on foreign wars and their consequences since September 11.
Alarming images.
Taliban fighters have flooded the capital.
They're American-made weapons in the hands of Taliban fighters.
Many of the Afghans trying to escape actually helped American armed forces.
It was quite clear that it was going to come to this.
I stand squarely behind my decision.
And trillions more for other military operations and for supporting military bases in 70 countries.
750 bases overseas, across 80 countries and colonies. That means that about 4 out of every 10 countries have US bases on them. But having that many military bases abroad is normal, right?
This is more foreign military bases than any country or people or empire in world history.
And why is that?
And it still isn't spending enough to support its military competition with China in the area around China. In this cycle, the richer countries eventually get deeper into debt by borrowing from poorer countries that save more. It's one of the early signs of a wealth and power shift. This started in the United States in the 1980s, when it had a per capita income 40 times that of China's, and started borrowing from Chinese who wanted to save in dollars because the dollar was the world's reserve currency. Similarly, the British borrowed a lot of money from its much poorer colonies, and the Dutch did the same at their time. If the empire begins to run out of new lenders, those holding their currency begin to look to sell and get out rather than to buy, save, lend, and get in.
Economist Harry Dent is making a dire prediction about the market next year. He says 2024 is going to bring, and I'm quoting him now, the biggest crash of our lifetime.
Where are we now with the U.S. economy?
Well, we're in a recession.
The decline. The decline comes from internal economic weakness together with internal fighting or costly external fighting or both. Typically, the decline comes gradually and then very suddenly. When debts become very large and there is an economic downturn and the empire can no longer borrow the money necessary to repay its debts, the financial bubble bursts. This creates great domestic hardships and forces the country to choose between defaulting on its debts or printing a lot of new money. It always chooses to print a lot of new money.
You simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did.
You've been printing money.
Well, effectively.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money, digital.
Flooding the system with money.
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that.
There is no end to our ability to do that.
When the government has problems funding itself, when there are bad economic conditions, and living standards for most people are declining, and there are large wealth.
In this parking lot, 3,000 cars are waiting in line for food to be handed out. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs. Middle-class families are finding themselves homeless.
Values.
The Israel-Hamas war stoking protests across the U.S. at various college campuses.
Act like a woman. Trans women are women!
The children of anti-trans demonstrators trampled on pride flags in front of a school.
Hochul says she's deploying the National Guard to city subway stations to keep riders safe.
And political gaps. Internal conflict between the rich and the poor, as well as different ethnic, religious, and racial groups. Greatly increases. This leads to political extremism that shows up as populism of the left or the right.
It has to happen now. We are going to destroy the GOP.
Those of the left seek to redistribute the wealth, while those of the right seek to maintain the wealth in the hands of the rich. Typically, during such times, taxes on the rich rise. And when the rich fear their wealth and well-being to be taken away, they move to places, assets, and currencies they feel safer in.
Income tax and cost of living fuel a wealth migration out of state. They also found that California lost the most, followed by New York, Illinois, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. $340 million in 1 year of the tax revenue that we lost from the rich people leaving the state.
These outflows reduce the empire's tax revenue, which leads to a classic, self-reinforcing, hollowing out process. Populist leaders emerge from both sides and pledge to take control and bring about order.
Our fight has only just begun.
Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today.
That's when democracy is most challenged because it fails to control the anarchy. And it is when the move to a strong populist leader who will bring order to the chaos is most likely. As conflict within the country escalates, it leads to some form of revolution or civil war to redistribute wealth and force the necessary big changes.
In widespread unrest not seen in decades, American cities from Seattle to Washington, D.C. burned as many peaceful protests during the day turned by night. Governors in 12 U.S. states have activated National Guard troops to quell the violence and restore order.
No peace! This can be peaceful and maintain the existing order, but it's more often violent and changes the order.
The violence that has left dozens of businesses burned, officers wounded, and several demonstrators killed.